virtual class expectations we view at the beginning of each class. You all do an amazing job with these, so I will move on here in just a moment as soon as I'm done adjusting. One more thing. Okay, so here's our icebreaker question for today. What is your favorite animated movie? So it could be Disney, Pixar, Warner Brothers, just any animated movie that you are a really big fan of. And then you should type your response out here in the chat. And you can tell me why too. Cars! Oh, I love that movie. I noticed there's this new like TikTok trend right now with the Lightning McQueen, like the supporter, the little car. It was really cute. Okay, we're getting quite a few responses here. Moana, love Moana, and Ratatouille. That one is my favorite. Shrek. So, if any of you have ever done a history day project before when I was student teaching, my mentor teacher went out after the history day competition was finished. And so when the other teacher started the new unit, I just decided to let the kids watch Moana. The sub was totally okay with that, obviously, but the other teacher had started the new unit. And I'm like, might as well wait till he gets back. But the kids were really happy about that. So that's my story about Moana, but I love that movie because it had just come out at the time. So Encanto's a really good one too. Wreck-It Ralph is one of my all-time faves, but I would say hands down Ratatouille is the best. If any of you have been to Disney World, they have this cool little ride at Epcot where you get to ride around in Emile or Remy, and then it's a Ratatouille based ride, so it's really cool. So if you haven't had a chance here to write in the chat, just write what your favorite animated movie is. I think most of us have responded, so I will move on to the agenda for today. Here we go. So we just did our icebreaker question, and then the next thing we are going to do is for our Black History Month profile, we are going to look at Bayard Rustin today, and we're going to complete an ed puzzle. So it's a little different than the Padlet responses. If you were like, oh, we're doing Padlet all the time, no, we're going to do an ed puzzle. And then after that, we will be doing a Kahoot, kind of like a preview on the Renaissance and Reformation period. And then after that, if you have any questions for me. So if you're ready to get started, just give me a thumbs up or write in the chat that you are ready to go today. Thank you, Amelia. So right now on the screen, is it the agenda, but is it kind of distorted or does it look normal? Okay, it looks normal. Cool, because my preview is showing it as distorted, like the screen is going like that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I'm not just talking over that and like it looks like a mess. So I'm glad it looks normal. Okay, I'll move on to the ed puzzle and how to get there. I'm just gonna remove the preview thing so I don't see that because it's kind of annoying on my end. Okay, there we go. Cool, so I'm gonna show you how to get to our ed puzzle here. So you are gonna go to our Schoology page here. And then you are going to scroll down. It's not published yet, so if you're already ahead of Miss G, you won't see it just yet, but I'm going to publish it now. And then I'll wait for everyone to get in there. So you're going to scroll down to the pink folder that says Miss G's Class Connect Live and Recordings. And then you're going to go to that pink folder inside there that says Miss G's Class Connect Recordings and Assignments. And then you are going to see here there will be a folder which has today's Edpuzzle in there. Okay, so it is now published. So you're going to go here to Miss G's Class Connect Live and Recordings. Go down to here. Here's today's date. Today is Tuesday, February 28th. And then the Bayard Rustin Edpuzzle is what we're going to be working on. Oh, I got to go live first so you can get in. Okay, so it looks like we have 8 people here today, so we should have 8 people on the Edpuzzle. Okay, it looks like we were waiting on 2 more here. So if you need a refresher on how to get there, you're going to go to our world history page, and then you are going to go to Miss G's Class Connect Live and Recordings. It's a pink folder. And within the pink folder, you're going to see another pink folder that says Miss G's Class Connect Recordings and Assignments. And then today's date is Tuesday, February 28th. So you are going to scroll down to that one where it says recording and assignment, and then you are going to click on the Bayard Rustin Edpuzzle. So the reason I had chose him as our last person was kind of a more personal connection, I guess. My boyfriend grew up in the Westchester area where Bayard was born and raised and from. And so they renamed one of the high schools after him, which I thought was really cool. And I think he's widely not really known very much during the civil rights movement. So I think it's a really important person to profile and to look at. So I'm excited to see what you guys think. Okay, I'll give you one more minute here. And if you're not able to join right at this moment, you can always go back and do it separately and then just track the answers as we go along so we can get started here.
On August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. That day, nearly 250,000 people gathered on the National Mall to demand an end to the discrimination, segregation, violence, and economic exclusion Black people still faced across the United States. None of it would have been possible without the march's chief organizer, a man named Bayard Rustin.
Okay, so here is our first question. Who was the March on Washington's chief organizer, MLK Jr., John Lewis, or Bayard Rustin? So as we know, today our person that we're looking at is Bayard Rustin, so he was the chief organizer.
Rustin grew up in a Quaker household and began peacefully protesting racial segregation in high school. He remained committed to pacifism throughout his life and was jailed in 1944 as a conscientious objector to World War II. During his 2-year imprisonment, he protested the segregated facilities from within. Wherever Rustin went, he organized and advocated, and was constantly attuned to the methods, groups, and people who could help further messages of equality. He joined the Communist Party when Black American civil rights were one of its priorities.
Okay, so which political party did he join while civil rights were its priority? The Republican Party, the Communist Party, or the Democrat Party? So as we heard from the video, it was the Communist Party at the time.
But soon became disillusioned by the party's authoritarian leanings and left. In 1948, he traveled to India to learn the peaceful resistance strategies of the recently assassinated Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay, which Indian leaders, strategist did he study? Siddhartha Gautama or Gandhi? So for this one, it was Gandhi. So after he left the Communist Party, he went to this Indian leader to study under and learn from. So if you have not answered yet, it is Gandhi.
He returned to the United States armed with strategies for peaceful protest, including civil disobedience. He began to work with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1955 and shared these ideas with him. As King's prominence increased, Rustin became his main advisor, as well as a key strategist in the broader civil rights movement. He brought his organizing expertise to the 1956 bus boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama. In fact, he had organized and participated in a transportation protest that helped inspire the boycotts almost a decade before.
Okay, so how long before the Montgomery bus boycotts had Rustin organized and participated in a similar bus boycott? So I heard her use the word decade in there, so it would be 10 years before.
His largest scale organizing project came in 1963 when he led the planning for the National March on Washington. The possibility of riots that could injure marchers and undermine their message of peaceful protest was a huge concern. Rustin not only worked with the DC police and hospitals to prepare, but organized and trained a volunteer force of 2,000 security marshals. In spite of his deft management, some of the other organizers did not want Rustin to march in front with other leaders from the South because of his homosexuality. Despite these slights, Rustin maintained his focus, and on the day of the march, he delivered the marchers' demands in a speech directed at President John F. Kennedy.
So which US president did Rustin focus the marchers' demands to? Lyndon B. Johnson or John F. Kennedy? So we could hear from that. He had said JFK. Both presidents were in office in the 60s, so the civil rights movement era. So I want to make sure you click the right one, but it was JFK. A lot of the work that JFK had done kind of paved the way for Lyndon B. Johnson to be able to pass the legislation and make it into a law.
The march itself proceeded smoothly, without any violence. It has been credited with helping pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination, and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which outlawed discriminatory voting practices.
Okay, the March on Washington helped pass which piece of legislation? The 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So what do we think that one is? Looks like we are a little stumbled on this one. I can go back and re-watch it for us.
Without any violence. It has been credited with helping pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination, and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which outlawed discriminatory voting practices.
Okay, so based on that, which one do we think it is? I'm gonna have to say the Voting Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act was in 1964, and then after that was the Voting Rights Act. Yep.
In spite of his decades of service, Rustin's positions on certain political issues were unpopular among his peers. Some thought he wasn't critical enough of the Vietnam War, or that he was too eager to collaborate with the political establishment, including the president and Congress. Others were uncomfortable with his former communist affiliation. But ultimately, both his belief in collaboration with the government and his membership to the Communist Party had been driven by his desire to maximize tangible gains and liberties for Black Americans, and to do so as quickly as possible. Rustin was passed over for several influential roles in the 1960s and 70s, but he never stopped his activism. In the 1980s, he publicly came out as gay and was instrumental in drawing attention to the AIDS crisis until his death in 1987.
Okay, so which major crisis in the 1980s did Bayard Rustin help shed light on? The war on drugs, the AIDS epidemic, or the Cold War? So for this one, it would be the AIDS epidemic. And then if you have not picked yet, it is the AIDS epidemic.
In 2013, 50 years after the March on Washington, President Barack Obama posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, praising Rustin's march towards true equality, no matter who we are or who we love.
Okay, which U.S. president posthumously after his death awarded Rustin with the Presidential Medal of Freedom? George W. Bush, Barack Obama, or Bill Clinton? So they said it was in 2013. So the president at the time was Barack Obama. So it would be Obama that awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Bayard Rustin famously said that every community needs a group of angelic troublemakers, people willing to stand up and speak out against the status quo. And students around the world have always been uniquely positioned to do just that.
Okay, so here's our open-ended question. So why is the character strong theme for the month of honesty important for the last thing mentioned in this video? So the quote is, people willing to stand up and speak up against the status quo. Students around the world have been uniquely positioned to do just that. So this one is going to take a little more time to think out and write out. So take your time on this one. but that's how we're connecting it back for this particular lesson. And then will you write in the chat when you are done with this question so I can move on to the other one? I don't remember if where it says 0 out of 7 answered, if it waits until you've answered both questions or if it just does it for one of the two questions when it's grouped together and bundled like I have it here. Okay, so I'm seeing that 2 people are done already, so that means that it doesn't fully update until you've answered both of the questions. So I'll give you like another 30 seconds to wrap up this one, and then we'll move on to the next question. And thank you for your patience on that. I think next time I won't like bundle them together like that so that it's easier to manage. Okay, so the second question is, why do you think Bayard Rustin's story is important to learn about? Okay, since we're running a little low on time here, what I think I'm gonna do with the Kahoot is assign it as homework. So we're not gonna like play it live together. So you can do it now if you have time. But if you need more time to finish it up later, you can always go back and do it at another time. So I have to quickly make that adjustment so I can get that sent out to you guys right now. I'm gonna stop sharing here for a moment. Okay, one moment here. The way that I did it, I'm having a hard time being able to access it again, so I gotta. Okay, I found it. So I'm gonna send that out in the chat here. Okay, so that Kahoot challenge link is in the chat for you to do when you have time, but make sure you get that done as soon as possible. I'm going to start sharing my screen here again. Okay, it looks like for the Edpuzzle, we're waiting on one more response, so you can finish that up here in a second. So you guys are going to do the Kahoot independently. So in class today, here's the things we covered. So for our Black History Month profile, we learned about Bayard Rustin. So you can identify who he is and his contribution to the civil rights movement. And then for the Kahoot, you guys are going to do that independently when you have time. So if you want to get started on it now, or if you want to come back to it later, you can. But I'll be able to like track who did it. And so I can be able to assign like your points from there. For the Kahoot, your learning targets are I can identify key figures and historically significant events from the Renaissance and Reformation period. So for today, do you guys have any questions for world history or feeling pretty good? Oh, I do have one question. Do you prefer doing the Edpuzzle version of like how we did our Black History Month profile, or would you rather do it on Padlet or a mix of the two? So you can write that in the chat. The one thing I find a little annoying about the Edpuzzle is that you can't make it full screen. So it's like you see a lot of background and then a little video. Mix of both. Okay. So please write your response out here in the chat. So what you should be answering right now is if you prefer to do these profiles on Edpuzzle, or if you like to do it on Padlet, or if you want to do a mix of both. Okay, I'm seeing some more shifted towards Edpuzzle. Okay, sweet. And then I have one more question. So, the month of March is Women's History, month. So, would you guys like to continue what we're doing right now and just profile different women who've been historically significant? Would you enjoy doing that? Like if the videos are pretty brief, like, a minute to like 3 minutes? Okay, sweet. Yay. I'm glad you guys are enjoying them and liking them. Ooh, a lot of yeses. So if you have any recommendations who we should do, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can always email them to me too. But you guys are all good to go here. I'm gonna end the recording.